who wrote a book in 1916 called The Negro. It was advertised in The Crisis, which was a magazine. This book, The Negro, outlined ancient civilizations that up until that point had never been put in such a scholarly perspective. It had been spoken about, but never collected like this. Drusilla Dunjee Houston and William Leo Hansberry was impacted by this book, The Negro. And in this book, she speaks about Kushites. The Kushites that we're talking about. And there's evidence of it. There is evidence of it in an essay written by Dr. Bruce Williams, who went on an excavation in Nubia with another doctor by the name of Dr. Keith Seal. And what they found in what is called Taseti. Ta means land. Seti gives the impression of a bowl, land of the bowl. Because that's what these Africans were known for. They were known as great Marx people. And I say Marx people because the sisters were bad too. They found in one of the areas, in what we today call northern Sudan, it's called Kustal, Q-U-S-T-A-L. They found an incense burner that had carved on it, it had engraved on this incense burner the pharaonic kingdoms that would later come up into Egypt. They found this 15 to 20 generations, about 300 years before the first dynasty of Kemet, or Egypt. They found this incense burner existing that would usher in what we call the pharaonic kingdoms, which means that in this area, black folk, dark complexion, well pigmented, wide nose, thick lip, curly to kinky hair people had already had a civilization in place. So what am I saying? I am saying, looking at that old kingdom, instead of being over there where Eurasians are looking at it as old, I'm saying look at it from the African perspective where it's old because it came long after we first got our thing together. Do you understand the transfer? Because we're not understanding the greatness of our people. We're not understanding that in our DNA, built inside of us, there is a desire for excellence. And I'm talking to that baby right now. I'm talking to you.
Yes, he's listening too.
And I'm talking to you young brothers here. You know what I'm saying? In you is greatness. And the sky is not the limit. What we did was so phenomenal. When we study our history and what we did, I don't blame them for conducting themselves towards us the way they did. If I were them, I would do it too. We don't really understand how great we are. And it goes back to what Elder's saying. It's not about talking. It's about doing. When we leave here today, my question to you is, what are you going to do with this experience that you've had here today? Not what do you know, what are you going to do? It's called measurable terms, where it can be measured, the difference in what you're going to do. That's why they want to give credit to alien beings. I mean, they'd rather give credit to aliens. The folk they can't even prove existed. They'd rather give proof to them than to say, you know, black folk had it together back then.
Right. That's true.
The reason why it is a mystery as to how that happened is because they don't get it. But you have in your DNA the ability to know.
Yes.
It's ingrained, it's imprinted, it is tattooed on your consciousness. And what's interesting is that none of you walked into this room not knowing everything that you're going to walk out here with. There is no way I could put anything into your head that you didn't already have already. It's like if we turned out all these lights. It was dark outside, couldn't see a thing. And then all of a sudden you found the light switch, you saw the chairs, you saw the cameras, you saw the clock, you saw the screen. The question that I ask you is, did all those things appear in the room when you turned on the light? No, they were there. Your light just wasn't on. Okay. And the greatest teacher is a facilitator that takes you through the process of realizing that you always knew. We talked earlier about my experiences as a kindergarten teacher, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. And the way in which I administered information, the way in which I transmitted information was in the tense. You know, you have present, past, future tense, all sorts of. The way in which I spoke to them was as if you already know it. All I'm doing is reminding you that you know it. So education is like a search for the information in what we call the pattern in the tabernacle. There's a pattern, and there's only one truth. And that truth exists on the physical, mental, and spiritual level. Some of us can get it on the mental level. Oh, yeah, that's heavy. But we don't do nothing about it. Ignorance is not knowing. Ignorance is knowing but choosing to ignore and what you know. That's what ignorance is. We are responsible for what we have to do, family. Yes. Each and every one of us is responsible for what it is we have to do. And I firmly believe that the Creator has given us this divine destiny. The Creator has given us the charge. Because you see, when we were back as Cushites, see, we had the information. And we were living in heaven, sort of, kind of. You know, we had our problems. But basically, back in the day, we had it going on. The basic needs were always taken care of. The great majority of people never worried about food, clothing, shelter. That was never came into our mind. Think about it now. Like, now all of us right here, somehow or other, unless we're in a very good position, we're thinking about paying the rent. Okay, that's messing with our neurons. Sister talking about stress. Think of all your stressors. Think about an educational system that is judging you by a test that doesn't even test how intelligent you are. But you know you got to play the game in order to get that piece of paper that's going to get you a job that you don't even know you're going to get. That is a stress. Think about what we face. When I woke up this morning, I said to myself, how long will I live before someone reminds me I'm black? White folk don't have to worry about that. Because this world was made for them, so to speak. They wake up and they just act white. Nobody ever reminds them that you're black. I'm going to prove it. Let a siren go off behind you. How many of us don't think it's us that they're going to get? Oh, damn, what did I do? Oh, I didn't even do anything, but they're going to get me. We even got a stressor thinking, am I going to get home tonight alive? That's a stressor. That's constantly coming at you. But our greatest problem that we face as a people, and I'm talking about the human family, because there's only one race on our planet, and that's the human race. And because of Glosier's law and Allen's law and Bergman's law, which is the law that speaks of pigmentation, it's a law that speaks of body weight, it's laws in science that have measured how people became who they were. This family had to have been born in a warm climate. Don't believe me? Right now we're July. Our complexion is not what it was in January. Okay? And no matter how dark we may get right now, in January 17, we will not be this complexion. Why? Because the sunlight, the light, and heat energy that comes from the sun acts on the blackness of our existence. And it brings together black molecules, and this captures and absorbs light and heat energy that draws it down into your skin. And you have an epidermis and you have a dermis. In your epidermis, you have 5 layers. Stratum corneum, stratum luciderm, stratum glandulosum, stratum spinosa, stratum basale. For the nurses and those that know biology, we're walking together here. I don't mean to step on the feet, but I'm talking to you about what I know. In the bottom 2 layers, in the spinosa and the basale, you have a biochemical known as 7-dehydrocholesterol. See, we got to get, see, that's why they don't invite me places. Because I don't get emotional. We get science. See, that's where that benign neglect come in, like they ignore that I'm in the room. Because they know that when you approach them from a scientific perspective, you got to drop, everything goes out the window at that point. 7-dehydro, I'm sorry, it's okay. Cholesterol. You can Google that. That's a biochemical that resides in the bottom 2 layers, in your stratum spinosa and your stratum basale. It resides down there. When the light and heat energy comes down, your skin absorbs and pulls the light and heat energy in. It goes to the bottom 2 layers, and the 7-dehydrocholesterol impacts the light and heat energy from the sun, and that converts. You see, everyone talks about you need vitamin D, but no one says there's 4 types of vitamin D. The first 2 are inactive. D1, D2 is inactive. It just sits in your skin. But when that D1, D2 is acted upon by the sun and 7-dehydrocholesterol, it converts inactive 1 and 2 into active D3 and 4, and that's the vitamin D that you need. This is science. This ain't personal. I ain't mad. Please, brother.
Yeah, I have a question. I want to know, you said we're all part of a human family, and I want to know if we are, would you say that the Caucasian is a part of our same human family, being that we came here first? And the reason why I ask is because the word human itself is prefix, meaning a person with color. Hue means color. So I wanted to know, how are they part of our family if we already know that we was here before 6,000 years?
Because first of all, when we use the word human, we're talking a language that's not ours.
Okay.
So I'd be careful. Human man comes out of a concept from another language. Our ancestors never talked like this. The idea of white, the concept of being white was started. It wasn't that long ago that folks started calling themselves white. Mm-hmm. As it relates to the different Negro race and red race and yellow race and all these, that was started 1820, 1830. Wasn't nobody referring to themselves like that before. Right. But in order to pacify the inhumanity to humanity, they created an illusion that allowed them to say, well, you're lucky we got you from Africa because y'all were primitive. Mm-hmm. But what they don't tell you that in a place known as Eredo, E-R-E-D-O, don't believe me, in Eredo, Nigeria, there is a city that is 400 miles. Wow. 400 square miles in diameter. It has ramparts, which are like walls that stand up 75 feet. which basically, if you look at a 10 feet as being a story, a 7.5-foot story guard around a 400, look, from Boston to New York is, I'm not, what, close to 400 miles? 250. And look at D.C. That's like a city that I wouldn't even have left New York to say I'm going to Boston. I'd just say I'm going to the northern part of the city. That's 400 miles, 400 square miles, family I'm talking about. Black folk did this, and it was up and running in 1000 AD. But hold on. If it was up and running in 100 AD, how long did it take to do it? How long would it have taken to build a city like that? But hold on. How long did it take to think of the math and the science that would go into first thinking of the engineering and the technology that would build a city that would be up and running 1000 AD? This is us. This is what we